Enter the Long Box of the Damned 2023 Bumper Contest, if you dare. Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Amalgam Comics Month continues with a character that, honestly, the fact that Marvel never actually used the name before now is kind of surprising. Spider-Boy. But first, a correction. I said last time that some characters had multiple books being printed at the same time. That's not accurate. Blame it on my own lack of research on exactly how these were printed. I assumed that all 24 one-shots were done in the same time period between issues 3 and 4 of DC vs. Marvel. Note 12 were released during that time, and a year later they released another 12, partially to tie into a follow-up miniseries to the Versus fight, but that's a story for another time. That's where stuff like Dark Claw Adventures and Super Soldier Man of War came from. It is still kind of weird though, right? That some of these characters got a second book instead of doing more new combinations. I mean, that's how we got stuff like Lobo the Duck. But anyway, I'd like to stick most of the factoids in history about Marvel vs. DC to its own video, should that ever get made, but that detail is important for the combo we have today. One of the decisions they had to make when writing DC vs. Marvel was whether they were going to be the iconic versions of the characters, or were they going to reflect how things looked at the time in both companies, aka the mid-90s? Dude! Aka the best versions of these characters! While Ron Mars had the attitude that they should be the traditional versions, ultimately it was decided that since the book could serve as an entry point for new readers to either universe, well, actually the oral history of this that I've been cribbing from for background details had him say an entree into, which is a bit of a weird way of putting it, but whatever. Then they should reflect what the universes looked like at the time. That's why Thor in this story is wearing whatever the hell this outfit is.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
Admittedly, I do kind of wish they had gone for iconic, because in the book, Thor fought the Billy Batson Captain Marvel. But you know, if they were unburdened by continuity, we would have had Captain Marvel versus Captain Marvel. But to our point, this was in the middle of the Clone Saga. Specifically, it was after it was revealed that Ben Reilly was the original Spidey and Peter the Clone, so Ben is our Spider-Man in this, wearing the sensational costume. One of the issues with the Amalgam universe is that there aren't necessarily one-to-one analogs between characters with roles in their respective universes. I pointed out the weirdness of Wolverine and Batman beyond them being popular, but people in the comments pointed out a better matchup would have been Daredevil. And honestly, I think they're right. Sure, not a one-to-one analog, but dark figures who work mostly at night, lost their parents when they were young, trained since childhood to defend the innocent and fight for justice. That'd be perfect. But for the time this came out, I struggled to think of a character who would be the equivalent matchup from DC for Spidey to fuse with. Jaime Reyes would sort of fit for teenage Peter, but of course Jaime didn't exist yet, and this was an adult Peter. However, there was a relatively new character at DC who could be young and snarky and had that cloning thing. Connor Kent, aka Superboy. And hey, at the time they may have been pushing Ben as the true Peter Parker and not the clone, but in how things ended up playing out, they certainly got the two clone characters. I should also note that the penciler of this issue, Mike Wieringo, will be coming back into the Clone Saga near its end, specifically because of his work on this issue. So even if plot-wise this doesn't contribute to the overall arc, from a production standpoint, this makes a difference in it. So let's dig into Spider-Boy #1 and see how they combined the two.
Atop the fourth wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn.
The cover is busier than it needs to be, in my opinion. It's not terrible, but it contains just one too many elements, which in this case is this white character in the background. Now, Spider-Boy does fight both this and what's trying to hit him with the lizard tail, but the result of having both villains on the cover like this, with that arch shape to them, is that it just overcomplicates the visuals. That being said, the Spider-Boy costume ain't bad. Black leather jackets work with some superhero costumes better than others, and it definitely fits the Spider-Man aesthetic, though the webbing on the shoulder pads seems a bit excessive. One thing I don't really like is the leg strap pouch. This is actually a holster, but when I first saw it, I thought it was a pouch. It's a bit of unnecessary asymmetry, and, like the cover, just adds a single thing more than it needs. Maybe it would work better as a different color than yellow. Now here's something a bit weird. The web shooter is, well, kind of a more literal usage of the term, since it's a gun. Spider-Boy, Spider-Boy, pistol thwipping you, Spider-Boy. Also, kudos to the amalgamation of the logo. The slant Superman/Superboy masthead plus the jagged lettering of Spider-Man is a nice combo. With great power comes great possibilities. Not gonna lie, that's actually an amazing tagline. Well done. We open in some kind of laboratory as Spider-Boy is shooting his web gun at the white creature from the cover. Because you demanded it! A new comic featuring the awesome Iraq Kid in Big Trouble! Okay, I'm on the edge of whether Iraq Kid is a great or worse nickname because, on one hand, alliteration. On the other hand, said out loud, it sounds like they're saying kid from the country Iraq. Me want be like you, Spider-Boy, but there am only one Spider-Boy. Me must increase output in order to meet sales demands. So stop fighting so Bizarnage will kill you! Okay, first of all, Bizarnage. A combination of Bizarro and Carnage. Not my first pick for a pairing, but I'm a bit less critical of villain mashups than I am the heroes. Secondly, Bizarnage is a good name, and honestly I kinda dig the design for him. A white symbiote with black eyes and mouth. But anyway, yeah, Bizarnage wants Spider-Boy, so he can be Spider-Boy. You know, you just can't argue with logic like that.
There is logic in what he says.
And here I thought I was protecting the genetic research facilities of Project Cadmus from a deranged DN alien bent on death and destruction. And here I thought I was providing exposition. There's an editor's note. Don't tell us you missed the mega million selling way cool Spider-Boy number 37. It's still on sale at discriminating newsstands. If you're lucky. Okay, something I haven't really talked about yet with Amalgam is that they treated the whole thing in a joking way as if the Amalgam universe was the only universe, that DC and Marvel didn't exist at all. Thus, they peppered the books with references to past adventures, editor's notes to books that didn't exist, and the thing that many commenters were surprised I haven't mentioned yet, the letters pages, full of fake letters talking about their criticisms of past issues and excitement about plot points that never happened, usually with combination names of creators. Which makes this editor's note slightly head-tilting, since that means they're really badly copying the worst tendencies of both companies. As evidently they're launching a new Spider-Boy book while an issue of the last Spider-Boy book is still on the newsstands. The letters page specifically makes fun of the Spider-Man books having 4 titles out at the same time, but that they're consolidating them all into this one new book. But why does that require restarting from issue 1? Also, the letters page contradicts that because you demanded it text, since that reader specifically did not demand a new Spider-Boy title. Anyway, back to the story. Bizarnage is able to break free of Spider-Boy's webbing and proclaims that our hero is going to die. Me, I'm too young to have a death wish. See, someday people will think of these as the adventures of Spider-Man when he was a boy. You hearse me now and my merchandising will go through the roof, actually. My god, imagine how much money I'll have by the time they resurrect me. Kill me now, Bizarnage! He goes after Director Harper, the guy in charge of Cadmus. Me Bizarnage-ize him!
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
Me become Cadmus' big boss! Oh, so I see we threw Metal Gear into the amalgamation, too. Spider-Boy not do what I not want, then! Yeah, all of a sudden he's speaking in Bizarro speech where he says the opposite of what he means, and sure, that's part of the whole fusion idea, but it's only being done now, so suddenly we have to question every single thing he's said so far and whether he meant the opposite. Although maybe that was supposed to be the idea, that Bizarro and Carnage are so incompatible a combination that both personalities are vying for control. Or maybe it's just inconsistent writing. Director Harper tells Spider-Boy not to worry about him, which, what else is there to worry about? When Spider-Boy promises not to move and let himself be killed, Bizarnage lets Harper go and heads towards Spider-Boy. Couldn't really do much to that snap-crackle symbiote while he had Johnny Storm Bizarnageized. Wait, is Harper's nickname Johnny Storm? Yeah, nope, in the following pages, it's suddenly Johnny Storm and not the director who was attacked. Is there a page missing where he stepped in or something? Whatever. Spider-Boy's arm suddenly lifts up and fires the web shooter, which he admits did so as if the gun had a mind of its own. Bizarnage warps its body around the webbing, but it turns out the actual goal was to hit a button on a console, which opens up the large door Spider-Boy was attached to. He then apparently ducks out of the way, so Bizarnage goes flying into the room it opened. An energy containment cell. Yes, yes, yes! Welcome to the premiere of WBIZ, the all-symbiote channel! And yet somehow it's still just playing Teen Titans Go 24 hours a day. So yeah, Johnny Storm and the rest of the Fantastic Four are here, but they're really side characters. Right now, just employees of Cadmus, who, if you didn't know, are a secret organization dedicated to genetic research who originally created the Connor Kent Superboy. The Fantastic Four would end up getting their own spin-off book in the second run of Amalgam Comics called Challengers of the Fantastic, merging them with DC's Challengers of the Unknown. No idea why they didn't get a combination in the first run while some other characters did, as we'll see next time. Anyway, they check over Johnny to see if he's okay, and, I was just checking on my miniature Johnny Stormtrooper clone, Prof. We're both okay, see? Miniature Johnny Stormtrooper clone.
Why? Because it's science, that's why.
Reed Richards wonders how Bizarnage escaped from containment, and Rocky, aka Senator Grimm, thinks that one scientist in particular, Dabney Donovan, is responsible, though said scientist points out that he was with them all day. Reed Richards, it turns out, is responsible. No one suspects it was I who set Bizarnage free. By the time they realize Cadmus's own chief scientist is behind the sabotage, it'll be too late! Too late for any of them! Ah, good, so the Amalgam Universe just realized that Reed Richards is a true villain and decided to roll with it. Nah, turns out it was Dabney Donovan. The experiment proceeds apace. It is fascinating to observe the effects of the evil DNA that I've been secretly adding to Professor Richards' diet.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
So, how do you determine what DNA is evil or not? Are there, like, little devil horns on the carbon atoms? He says it's to get Reed Richards replaced, but like, you know what's a really dumb plan? Making someone who's a super genius deliberately evil, because then they're gonna use their intellect in ways that could end with your death. Anyway, that's all interrupted by Susan Storm, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., carrying Dr. Kurt Connors. She announces that King Lizard broke out when Bizarnage shorted out the power grid and probably escaped via Underground River to New York. This is all my fault. What, cause your severed arm was mysteriously combined with reptile DNA and grown into the cannibal croc called King Lizard? Yes, Spider-Boy, that's why. Thank you for reminding us all. Senator Grimm tries to make a big announcement to prepare Cadmus for all-out war with King Lizard, but Spider-Boy has to point out that Cadmus is supposed to be a secret facility, so maybe he should go out and try to be more subtle about capturing him. Susan Storm accepts that. Alright, you mall-crawling wall crawler. Clever wordplay, but it's pretty impressive that you use the word crawling twice there despite the fact that he is clearly running on that wall. You've got 2 hours. Then I call my boss, Bruce Wayne, and S.H.I.E.L.D. takes over. He's just hovering over Gotham City right now for absolutely no reason. After some quick cameos by Hank Pym and our great disaster stoppin' pal Ray Palmer, you know, in some of these little asides they mention fake events in the Amalgam Universe. What do you think they merged Countdown with? Countdown to the Age of Apocalypse, maybe? Spider-Boy arrives at the launch bay for the Fantasto-Wagon, where who should be working in Cadmus but Doc Ock? Yep, seems Otto Octavius in the Amalgam Universe is a good guy and friend to Spider-Boy. You gotta use those things for more than just research, Doc. Sign on as my sidekick. I can see the headlines now. Doc Ock, the really long arm of the law. Oh, no thanks. I think we both agree that if I was a superhero, I'd be the superior Spider-Boy. We also learn that here, the Daily Bugle, instead of proclaiming Spider-Boy a menace, rather acts as a paparazzi rag implying all the supposed romances he's having, including this one. Insect Queen has Spider-Boy's love child. We know that one isn't true, because if it was, Joe Quesada would be obsessing with preventing Spider-Boy from having a baby out of wedlock. It seems they had already done a feature on him hooking up with Amazon, the Wonder Woman and Storm combo, but the more important thing, according to Doc Ock, is that Spidey has a blind date with someone he's arranged for him. Man, why couldn't Ock be one of my arch enemies? Then I wouldn't have to deal with things like this. That asshole would probably be saving my life during a Clone Saga or something. Oh hey look, the Fantastawagon had a hover conversion done in the early 21st century. Of course, the Doc's always been there for me, ever since... what happened to Uncle Jen? Ever since he died in that mysterious robot tentacles incident. Wait a minute! No, Spider-Boy is combining a bunch of character history together for this. Not just Superboy and Spider-Man. In this case, Uncle Jen refers to General Thunderbolt Ross, longtime enemy of the Hulk. Here, he's the last surviving witness of the original super soldier experiments from the 40s, with Cadmus's operating goal to specifically recreate the super soldier serum. Peter Parker, who in this version has black hair, was Otto Octavius's protege and had an idea to create a clone with the ability to manipulate gravity, which Ross was all on board for. That bulldog actually convinced those big brains to greenlight a college intern's psycho scheme. I just don't see how cloning Norman Bates will get us another super soldier. Even then, Chief Scientist Victor Von Doom went along, and this was before he became Dr. Doomsday and lost his marbles. Okay, I think everyone has said this before, but it's very clear you only mix Dr. Doom and Doomsday because of the name. And you know what? Respect. I would have done it too. The experiment caused some kind of power surge that killed Peter Parker and wiped out most of their research, but also woke up the clone they were creating. While he could manipulate his personal gravity to cling to walls and he possessed some super strength, he wasn't nearly as powerful as Super Soldier was. It's clear that Dabney Donovan was somehow responsible for this given how they're putting him in shadows, but also because of the wiped computer files, they're not sure whose DNA Parker used to create the clone. And it's obviously not a clone of Peter, otherwise they'd point that out. General Ross took Spider-Boy under his wing and taught him the great power comes great responsibility quote, though he says that was a lesson he learned from Super Soldier. A mugger killed Ross, thinking a grown man would be more trouble than some kid, and it was after that he decided to become Spider-Boy. That's when I knew I had to make sure I was never just a kid who got ignored while other people got hurt. And since this was the 90s, being in your face and extreme made this much easier. The car brings him to New York and Cadmus's New York offices, where Spider-Boy's business side of his existence is handled. A guy named Rex Leach wants to talk to him about the Insect Queen headline, but Spidey is busy trying to intercept the Lizard King. Naturally, since he doesn't really have web-slinging or traditional flight as part of his powers, he does the next best thing to speed himself along: literally be catapulted off the roof! He arrives on the roof of the Daily Bugle, where it turns out he does have a secret identity courtesy of a matter transformer that hides his appearance and turns him into a blonde named, of course, Pete Ross. Rex was actually a supporting character for Superboy at the time, and consequently we run into another, Tana Moon, who wants Pete to go with her to investigate some secret government base outside the city, which he knows to be Cadmus. However, before they can do so, J. Jonah Jameson thanks him for the latest Spider-Boy pictures. And Jack Ryder, who would be the Creeper in DC, hears about King Lizard's attack on the docks, so he sends them off to go get a story. Pete, however, has already slipped away and turned into Spider-Boy. Spider-Boy, Spider-Boy has the very best action toys. Top 10 show, games and vid. Gotta love the Iraq Kid. Hey there, looks like he can swing by, using his gun to fly. Why catapult the Spider-Boy? King Lizard here, apparently based on some dialogue later, they merged the lizard with Fin Fang Foom, which seems like an odd choice, since that's two Marvel characters together. I don't know, maybe they're mixing him with Killer Croc or something, but his origin is linked specifically to Kurt Connors, so what the hell. But whatever, members of New York's Special Crimes Unit show up to assist and open fire on King Lizard. But by ripping up some pipes from under them, he's able to force them back. Spider-Boy distracts King Lizard to make the creature follow him. After some dialogue between the Special Forces, we learn from Spidey that King Lizard is bigger than normal, a result of being exposed to Pym particles back at Cadmus, which in this case specialize in growth instead of shrinking. As such, he heads back to the New York Cadmus lab to try to get something to counteract this. Let's see. Phantom negative zone projector, invisible force field belt, mother cube. Note: the mother cube can do parenting! As hinted by Ray Palmer's cameo, he finds a prototype gun utilizing white dwarf star material for shrinking. Unfortunately, as King Lizard grows to kaiju size, he smashes through the building and breaks the device. Still, since the containment for the white dwarf star matter breached, Spider-Boy has an idea. He brings it to the roof where King Lizard climbs up to where Spider-Boy has loaded the container onto the catapult. He launches it right into King Lizard's mouth, and he shrinks down.
This isn't over. You will die by my hands someday.
Big talk from the newest resident of the subatomic universe. Say hi to the Micronauts for me. That reminds me, who do you think Rom merged with? I'm guessing he's the one true Green Lantern. Just a hunch. After some references to other Amalgam stuff, Spider-Boy returns to Cadmus. He admits to Doc Ock how while he saved Manhattan, he did accidentally trash a one-of-a-kind invention. Ah, again? Well, they don't call me the friendly neighborhood Spider-Boy for nothing, you know. Ah yes, just an inherent quality one would assume with that name. Saving the world while breaking unique things. And so our comic ends with Spider-Boy remembering that Doc Ock's here to introduce him to his blind date. Spider-Boy, allow me to introduce Mary Jane Watson, also known as Insect Queen. Wait, if she's just called Insect Queen, why is her symbol an 8-legged creature? Face it, Spider, you just hit the jackpot. I can't wait for Naren Fisto to break up our eventual marriage. This comic is actually pretty damn good. Not without flaws, but easily the best Amalgam comic we've seen so far. Its biggest issue to me is that it tries to introduce way too many characters. I get that in combining Spider-Man and Superboy, you have two significant supporting casts to integrate together, but it feels like instead of streamlining it down, they just decided to include everybody regardless of how important it was. Now, admittedly, the pacing of it is still pretty good considering how much is crammed in there, including a full origin story, but it's still a lot. I might not mind that as much if this was an actual series, but in its current context, it just overloads you with people, many of whom seem to just be there to hint at future Amalgam books. And yet, at the same time, it feels like a comic with a rich world covering all the angles of a fusion of the two. The Pete Ross secret identity, the Cadmus science and superhero stuff, some satirical jabs at superhero celebrity. It's all there, and lots of it feels like a setup for a proper series. It shouldn't work, and yet it does. The art is bright with high energy, the characterization seems to lean more towards a more youthful Spider-Man, yet it doesn't feel out of place for Superboy. The villains are also fairly one-dimensional and boring, but hey, this is meant to be a one-shot novelty book. I don't expect deep layers of characterization and pathos. There are a few weird moments, like the switching of Director Harper and Johnny Storm for no reason, the little mini clone of Johnny Storm, but otherwise the book is fairly solid for having so much condensed into these 22 pages, and I honestly think this is pretty good. But I don't think we'll be continuing that streak because next time we end Amalgam Comics Month with a book that many told me was the worst of the entire line. So, like, when he's swinging through the air, does he just use his other hand to grab onto the web he just shot, rip out the gun, and then shoot again? Feels like two guns would have worked better for this.
Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!